Hey everyone, I'm just getting things set up right now, so please bear with us.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Cool. So we're just, I think we're all set up on streaming, so just hang out until about 11.
That's right. All right.
Hey, Jeremy, oh, sorry. Actually, Jordan, you're set up as Nis, so you might want to change your name.
Oh, I logged in as NIS.
Yeah, why don't you, if you could log out and log back in with your own, that would be ideal.
Yeah, that would. Okay. Let me figure out how to actually do a log out.
You can just leave the meeting and then I think in the app it's easy, or just go to the zoom.us and then the upper right hand corner. I think that's where you can log out, or in the app itself.
Okay. I will do that.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, or something.
Actually, I look for my account now that I think about it.
Cool. While you figure out, I'm gonna go just prep some other stuff right now, but I'll be back.
Go for it. Hey, Chris. I think I'm back.
Okay, great.
My name. Okay.
Go ahead and try to do just another full screen and back, just to test.
Right. Right.
Cool.
How does that look?
Looks great.
Okay. So now, in the event there's a question that comes in, will you be stopping the share? I assume.
Yeah, I'll interject and then I'll tell you to stop the share. And then I'll.
Oh, you want me to? Okay.
Yeah, and then if it's someone that's actually in the meeting, I'll spotlight them, and then I'll have them ask the question, and then I'll go spotlight back to you, basically.
Okay. So I'll stop the share because I think you actually have the ability in Zoom to stop the share from your end.
Oh, I do. Okay, cool.
I think so.
Well,
I think
I
so.
won't pull the rug out from underneath you on that.
Up to you. No, it's fine. It's totally fine if you do. I think that's what I did when I hosted. Is I was controlling everything just so it went down the way it should. So because sometimes people forget to stop the share and then they land up talking to the screen. That's all. But no biggie.
Cool. Yeah, I think I can. Yeah, I can stop your sharing up at the top, so I can do that if I need to.
I should try. I'm curious. Hit it now. I just want to see what happens on my end. Ah, yep. It kills it off on my end.
Yeah, cool.
I go back to me, and then I'll just answer the question. Yeah, it would be you. You'd switch to me, and then I would switch back to sharing my screen, which I'll do right now.
Just really quickly, it's spotlight, not pin video, right?
That's right. Yeah, don't ever use pin. Pin's a different thing, and it messes stuff up apparently.
Okay, cool. Great.
Seeing my screen again, Chris?
Yep.
Okay, and it looks all right.
Yeah, it looks good. Ooh, animations.
Yeah. Oop. Let's go back to my home. Oh. This got out of my way.
Yeah, let me know whenever you want to get started.
I'm ready.
Okay. So a little bit of social media.
Yeah. I was just pinging my mentee because I don't see him in the
Cool.
the session. That's all.
All right. All right. So everybody, yeah, just a reminder to stay muted unless I call on you. And then please do use the questions in YouTube chat And so you should have gotten a link to that. So please do that there rather than in Zoom, because I'm not going to really be looking at that. So if people want to test that, and then, try to make sure that there are not other things open on your computer to avoid like causing problems with Zoom. And just a reminder, don't use the Zoom chat. And then, basically I'm just going to power through any mistakes that end up happening for the most part. But if I ask everybody to stop and then re-go again, we'll give ourselves a few seconds. Jeremy can always edit stuff again in the future. So when we actually do the full thing. So anyways, unless there's any questions, we'll get started right now. So 1 second. It's Sunday, October 13th, 2019, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today, we're joined by Jordan Bergtraum, who's going to be talking about getting the most out of the PMs on your team. Allow me to briefly explain the format. The Product Mentor Program is a program that happens twice a year where mentees from around the world are paired with experienced mentors in the product management field, and being able to work with them on a weekly basis towards a set of common goals, and really is very valuable to the mentees and the mentors when it comes to learning from each other. We're going to be joined by mentors today that are part of the program, and they're going to be presenting special topics that are close to their hearts. So we are joined by all of the mentees today, and mentors. So if people want to just wave hi really quickly and say hi, good to see everybody. What we're going to be doing today is I would like to first start with some introductions by everybody. So I'll just call on everybody individually, but then if you could give me your name, location, your role, and then whether you're a mentor or mentee. So let's start with Jordan.
I'm Jordan Bergtraum. I'm located in New York City. I am a mentor in the program, and I am the head of product for Equip ID.
Great. Candice, why don't you go next?
I'm Candice Zhang. I am a mentee in this program, and I'm located in New Jersey. I'm currently the head of product in company called Mentor.
Great. Andras, why don't you go next?
Hey all, I'm Andraž. I'm located in Slovenia, Ljubljana. I'm a product manager and I'm a mentee in this program.
Great, thank you. Vivek, why don't you go next?
Hi all, this is Vivek from Bangalore, a company called Recipe. I'm a mentee in the program.
Great. Fabi?
Hello, my name is Fabiola Borges, and I'm living in Mexico City. I'm currently head of product of Runa HR, a startup. Yeah, but I'm originally from Chile, not from Mexico.
Great. And John?
Hi there, I am John Masterson and I am based in London. I'm actually originally from Ireland, but based in London in the UK. I'm a mentor in this program, and I'm the Chief Product Officer at a startup here in London called Improve Well.
Great, thank you. Good to see everybody today. And we do have a few other mentors and mentees that were not able to make it, but very happy to have everybody here. So please do post any questions you have to the Q&A section of the productmentor.com/live. And this will then chat on YouTube. And then as questions come in, I'll jump in and pass them on to our mentor during the talk. So I am Chris Butler, and I'm Chief Product Architect at IPsoft. I'm also a mentor and mentor lead as part of the Product Mentor group here. And I'm going to be your moderator for today's live stream. So without further ado, Jordan, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Thanks, Chris. This morning, or for some of you this afternoon, I'm going to discuss with you ways to get the most out of your product management team. This discussion will probably be most interesting to those of you that either are or have aspirations to be managing or have some oversight responsibility for your product team. However, given many of you are not in that position, I do strongly believe that a lot of the techniques I'll be discussing with you will be helpful even when you're dealing with your product management peers as well. And you'll see why in a second. My background. I have 13 years of B2B SaaS experience. So I view things through a certain lens. And I think that lens when you're in B2B versus B2C versus internal tools varies. So I just like to let people know where my experience is. I understand the B2C and internal tools world. I actually did work in the internal tools world ages ago, but never B2C. So just keep that in mind. For 7 years, I've been leading product management teams, leading meaning line responsibility for other product management professionals, UX professionals, project management professionals as well. Also, that leadership comes with product portfolio strategy and direction. I've been in a number of different, very different domains that did not have any relationship. So I've gotten very comfortable coming into new verticals and having to learn them quickly, everything from legal to pharma, education, and most recently, I'm currently in the facilities management domain. And twice I've had the pleasure of introducing product management to an organization, meaning it was an organization that did not have an official product management function. And one of the reasons they were bringing me on was to introduce them to not just the processes and procedures, but the value of having dedicated and trained professional product managers on staff. Historically, I've done a number of different things that are probably not unobvious, but everything from the market research that goes into product direction and strategy, the product marketing that goes into the outbound messaging associated with launching a product and coming up with messages that will interest a market and interest them enough that they want to pay for that solution and hopefully pay a lot of money to you for that solution. I've also been responsible for roadmaps and the overall product delivery as well. So let's just outline what you'll get out of this presentation up front, so we'll set expectations. I'm going to discuss what I think the problem is. There's always a problem out there that we're looking to address. Then, of course, I will discuss potential solutions. I also want to take a moment to have a reality check around that solution and the fact that sometimes things admittedly sound more ideal than they are reality, and I recognize that. So let's just dive right into the problem I see that is out in the world. So product management is an incredibly broad function and discipline. Truthfully, I can't think of a broader discipline, maybe short of being the CEO of an entire company. I don't see the breadth and other roles that we have to deal with. So let me just very quickly go through all of the things that I think we need to deal with as part of doing end-to-end product management. So, right, the interviews, ideation, win-loss analysis, prioritization, road mapping, competitive intelligence, communicating, messaging, process flows, pricing, research, designing a product, backlog planning, estimating. Anyone exhausted yet, by the way? Because I'm already, and by the way, I'm not even done. There are a few more. User stories and authoring those. Escalating engineering and QA issues that come your way. Performing user acceptance testing. Training, demos. Okay, fine, I'm done. Okay, but you get the point. Point is, we get involved in so many different things, and these things are not all related at all, in my mind. In other words, related in the sense that they don't require the same personality types, the same experiences, and the same skills. They require a very varied, multidisciplinary type approach to your role. So what that leads to is I would never expect an individual to love all of those things and want to get involved deeply in all those things and have passion for all of those items I just showed you. That's just not realistic. Let's just live in the real world and recognize that, especially in product, given the breadth of the role, that no one's gonna like all components of the job. Now, outside of it, it's even harder, okay, not just to love it all, but it's even harder to find someone that can do it all at an A level, right? That's just, again, it's like asking someone to take on the responsibility of running your accounting, HR, and sales function all at the same time. You know, you're a small company and you're just gonna have one person do all that. No one would ever do that. Why? For obvious reasons. And yet in product, our expectations are almost as varied in terms of the skills that go into doing all those varied things that I just showed you on the prior slide. And the other problem is people tend to gravitate and want to put their heart, soul, effort, time into their strengths. Obviously, it's what we gravitate towards, what we're good at. But the problem is, the real problem is, that's not what we gravitate towards, and what we're good at isn't always the most important thing we should be working on. So we have to have that discipline to recognize that maybe we're spending a little too much time on the things we enjoy at the peril of the things that need to be done that are super important that we don't love. So that's the problem I see, is how do we handle that situation where we know we have a lot to do, we're not going to love it all, we're not going to be great at it all, yet we need to arguably do it all. So let's start talking about potential solutions. First, let's figure out what people enjoy. Meaning you have to have a conversation with them and determine, like, what are you into? Like, what are the big buckets of things that really turn you on? Now, sometimes it doesn't require a conversation, by the way. Sometimes it just requires watching them do their job. And as someone that has, you know, managed other product people, it is kind of easy for me in that role to recognize what people are interested in by just talking to them, listening to what they tend to want to talk about, what excites them, and not just what they talk about, but what they talk about that excites them. So it could be things like strategy, the market research part of our job, designing products, product marketing. So, sorry, moving on. What I'm suggesting is understand that first. Understand the broad areas of product that excites them. Next, I think it also helps to understand not just what they love, but what they're good at, because often these two things go hand in hand, but not necessarily. Sometimes people get really excited and they're interested in things that they're not necessarily amazing at, and in part because maybe they're actively pursuing it because they do want to get better at it, so they're developing a passion for it. But the reality of people are sometimes they love things that they're not amazing at. It does happen. It's maybe not as common as gravitating and falling in love with the things you're good at, but just know that they're technically two different things. So again, similar questions. Figure out what are their skills. Is it, again, strategy, research, designing software, or whatever the product might be, or the product marketing, where they love coming up with, you know, really lofty and beautiful messages that excite a marketplace. Let's also learn their motivators. So what do I mean by motivators? So what really are they? Why do they have their job? What drives them? What makes them wake up in the morning, want to get out of bed? And, you know, what is that? So for some people, it could be changing people's lives. For others, they view things through the lens of, I just want my company to succeed and do well. For others, let's just be honest, it could be financial incentives. And for some people, it's, you know, a little on the nose, it's praise. That what motivates them is hearing that they're doing a good job from other people. So another solution is think about how you can put people on the right product. So for example, if they have an artistic slant, I would suggest seeing if you have a redesign project that is currently going on. And what I mean by redesign is type of project where there is an existing legacy product that exists and it is time to start maybe from scratch the functionality is still holds true, but let's say it's mostly, you're not necessarily redesigning the back end or the middle tier, but it's mostly the front end that you're redoing, because you come to recognize that your experience is dated. And now look, don't get me wrong, redesigns also involve sometimes re-architecture behind the scenes. But oftentimes the point I'm making here is, if you know that you have a product person who has a love for UX without wanting to be a UX professional, because that's always another option, is they're in the wrong job. But if they truly want to stay a product person, that a redesign project can be great for them, because the biggest issue in a redesign oftentimes is, let's just scrap the existing front end and redo that. And when that's their passion, that's a great project for them. Another example could be for someone that's really into strategy, put them on new product development. Throw them out there to do lots of market research and look at what's going on out in your marketplace for brand new product opportunities, and problems that are out there that need to be solved, that you guys think you can solve, and that there's money involved in solving that problem for the marketplace. So let's imagine you have someone that's just a really good taskmaster. They are incredibly good at just seeing a problem come in, it comes in, and they are very disciplined about figuring out, of the few problems that have just come in, which ones to do first, quickly prioritize those, and then work with their team to get them done. So a potential place for that person could be maintenance. And I know a lot of people shy away from maintenance because it kind of has a connotation of being not the most exciting part. But for the right person, maintenance could be an incredibly rewarding job for someone that thinks along the lines of, hey, I love to see, let's say, defects come in. I understand how painful they can be for my customers, and all I want to do is get those solved for our customers and keep the product running in a way that it should. I love that. And there are definitely people that are out there that do derive satisfaction of just keeping the product in that steady state condition. And when they see it like dipping because of defects, they love to just tackle that. And let's say you have someone that is really excited about data, and data's they're it's something they're super interested in. We'll obviously put them maybe on business intelligence platforms or integrations. Let's also consider things like putting them in the right role as well. So now, of course, we're here to talk about product management, but there's no shame in recognizing that you might currently be in a product management role, or you notice someone else is in a product management role, but they shouldn't be. And maybe really what they should be doing is product ownership. And for those of you maybe that don't necessarily appreciate the distinction between product manager and product owner, and by the way, this gets defined slightly differently in different organizations, but at a simple level, I've found that when you have both roles in the same company, the product manager is setting the direction on what problems are we going to solve, in what order, and then the product owner sort of takes it from there. Once the order of the problems to be solved is understood, they take that first problem, and it's their responsibility to go out and then design the right solution to that problem from the product design perspective, working closely, of course, with UX and engineering on that. But there, they get closer to the execution part of actually making it happen from the development perspective.
Hey, 1 second, Jordan. Candace actually had a question, so why don't we go ahead and let her go ahead and ask it.
Yeah, sure. I have a question for you. Mentioned that find out the right content and right product for the team members to work on.
Sorry, Candace, your audio, I can't make it out. It sounds like you're either far from your mic, but I actually can't hear you, unfortunately. So that's going to make it hard to answer your question.
That's okay. Why don't I just read the question off? Yeah, so Candace actually had a question, how to balance between putting a product manager on the right project and stretching on something they are not good at.
Well, okay. Well, that is one of the points I was making, is do your best. And sometimes you have no choice given the projects that are available and the people that are available, of course, but try to match that up in a way that you are putting the right person on the right project or product based on all those things I was talking about, like their skills, interests, motivators, what excites them, and match that up for the simple reason that as you'd imagine, people will excel and do better on projects that they are good at, excited about, and motivates them from an emotional standpoint. Now, how you match that up is there's a lot of art that goes into figuring that out. But like, I think those 3 levers are where you start. What are they good at? And does that align with the project? What motivates them? And what do they personally love?
Great, that's really excellent. Thank you. Go ahead and take it back over, Jordan.
Recognizing that some people that are in product maybe shouldn't be in product. Maybe they should be UX professionals. Happens a lot. I've actually seen that transition happen a few times in my my personal experience. The other areas, perhaps that they're product managers that really are truly born to be project managers as opposed to product managers. Also, and here's I will admit this topic was an interesting one for me to think about, where I was thinking, try to put them on the right team. And by team, what I mean is thinking about who are they going to be working with, who they are, again, their interests and talents and motivators, and seeing if you can actually match them and pair them with, if it's within your purview to do so, with the right team members. So I think when it comes to, for example, putting them on with the right engineers and QA, there may be some flexibility there as you work with the engineering function on which engineers may be on which teams, and then which product person would be matched with them. And I think there's I'm not going to go into like how to figure out, which personality types will work well together. That would be a whole, other discipline that I am probably not properly trained to assess, because I did not, study psychology at any point in my, professional or education. So won't go there. But as you could get my point, which is at least think about that a little bit, especially from the engineering QA perspective. But I'd also say, think about the individuals in the other departments they may have a lot of interaction with, like sales and client success. And again, see if there's opportunity to pair the right people together for success, people that will work well together based on your, like I said earlier, the art that goes into, thinking to yourself, which 2 kids will play well together in the sandbox and produce a lovely sandcastle, as opposed to just throwing the sand at each other, and then you have crying that no one really wants.
Hey, Jordan, I have another couple questions. So Vivek, if you want to take a moment to ask your question.
Yeah. So a couple of questions, Jordan. First is in terms of, you mentioned about maintenance of tasks. I assume that is mostly around sprint planning and managing the sprint. So shouldn't that be taken up by a Scrum Master or a technical program manager rather than a PM owning that activity?
So maybe there's a little confusion there. By maintenance, I was really referring to defects and maybe technical debt, paying that down, and anything related to keeping performance tasks, keeping the product at a steady state, not maintaining a backlog. 2 very, very different things. And at the end of the day, if you think about it, every product person has to maintain a backlog. That's a given. That's part of the job. That's, regardless of of anything. So that's what I meant by maintenance. Sorry if there was confusion there.
Jordan, is that true that everybody has to maintain a backlog? I feel like is that not a controversial topic in product management?
I mean, I'd like to think all product managers are maintaining a backlog, at least some list somewhere that is prioritized. Perhaps I shouldn't call it a backlog.
All right, I'm not going to make this my talk, but thank you for answering that question. Vivek, did you have any other questions?
The next question I had for you, Jordan, is that spoke about product owners, right? So in Indian product management ecosystem, we don't have product owners. Can you just elaborate a bit on that? Is product owner same as business analyst?
It's a good question. So there is a lot of overlap in what I think people used to call a business analyst and a product owner. Yes. I think product owners are just a newer way of looking at that. And also just also be careful in the financial sector. I've noticed business analyst means something quite different than the way we use it in product. In financial services, business analysts typically are people that are generating a lot of reports and data and data manipulation and that. So that's not what I mean by BA. I mean, BA in our let's say our world. Yeah, BA and a product owner are similar. And look, and there are plenty of companies out there that don't have both roles. It's typically product owners, typically something you see in product organizations at scale when they get large enough that it actually makes sense to start to break down the role, the traditional product management role into those two components. There are pros and cons to that. I know there are some people that hate the idea. There are some people that love the idea. That in amongst itself is controversial in terms of, wait, shouldn't one person do all that one job? That sounds crazy. You know, you're going to break up the role and you're going to lose things in communication. How does that make sense? The counter argument to it is let the right tool do the right job, because again, like I was saying earlier, product management is so broad. How do you expect one person to be an A-level talent at all of those things? It'd be easier if you broke them down into two chunks and find people that, you know, will excel at just this chunk and then another person at just this chunk. So that's my talk on product ownership. So sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Great. And actually, there was one more question from Vishal Shah. There are always bugs in any release, and should one wait for all bugs to get resolved or just go ahead with a new feature?
Oh, Jesus.
That might be a whole nother talk, but
that's a whole other talk, but I'll give you my short answer, which is no, all defects should not be fixed. Okay, that just like all work should not be done. You only have so many resources to tackle work, and you could, first of all, in my experience, the defects alone could overwhelm a team if you tried to do them all. Okay, do not expect to do them all. So even if you did decide to try to have your team do nothing but defects and do no new features, you still probably wouldn't get to do all the defects that you have in front of you. Okay, once your product is at scale, I think that's true. Once it's early and small, maybe that's not the case. So the last point I want to make on that is your defects as they come in need to be prioritized against your features just using the same tools you would in terms of its prioritization. And those are just different types of work that need to be done. Work is work. You need to prioritize defects against all the other work. Now, the one other thing I'll say, and I have done this with a fair amount of success, is, and again, this only works when you get to scale where you're large enough that you have enough resources to break teams down. You can have a dedicated maintenance team that all they do is worry about defects and keeping the product at a steady state. Advantage of that being that you're not constantly interrupting your feature-based teams with defects where it makes it almost impossible for you to predict outputs because you can't predict defects. So that's one of the advantages of having a dedicated maintenance team that is responsible for handling the defects as they come in. That's just my quick talk on that. But yeah, that is a whole discussion in itself to really answer it.
Great. Well, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Will do. So just to wrap this up, think about your product people and the other people in the organization they'll be working with, and see if there's an opportunity to create, like I said earlier, that sandbox environment where they will make beautiful sandcastles. Another solution to this concern is set goals for people and not processes and procedures. Make sure they're measurable expectations, of course, right? It's very easy to give someone a goal. It's much harder to measure that they've achieved that. I think we all know that. I think we've all been given goals that are good and measurable, and goals that are bad because they either seem unmeasurable or arguably unachievable in the real world. So set good goals. Without good goals, you have no goals in my mind. And give people the freedom to figure out how to get to that goal. I think what you will find as you deal with other people, if you're not this type of person, but most people, is they are a lot happier in their job if they are left to figure out the pathway to get to the destination, as opposed to you saying, take, 41st Street to 8th Avenue to, 71st Street to, and that takes all of the creativity out of their lives. And it also sometimes can be read by that person as you don't trust them not to just drive in circles, right? Like, have a little faith in people, give them at least enough latitude and have enough faith in them that they'll figure out how to get to the goal. And and then eventually if they show that they can't do that, then that's an issue that, obviously needs attention. And maybe that person does need more direction, processes, and procedures than others. And that's fine. Some people will struggle on how to get to the goal. And hopefully those people, though, will recognize their personal limitations or struggles getting to a certain goal and hopefully ask for help. There is no shame in asking for help. So the whole point is, let them do it their way, not your way. Don't just assume your way is the best. This is just, a lot of like dealing with people type, example that I'm using of, with that freedom, I think you'll see that you're going to get more output out of people, more happiness. They're likely to stay at the company longer and work harder for you or with you.
Great. We have a quick question from Fabi. So why don't you go ahead and ask your questions.
So yeah, my question was, what happens when the company stage requires more roles related to new features rather than redesign or others? And you still have some PMs better doing redesign rather than new features. How can you mobilize them towards strategy? Is there any way to do that?
Well, okay, that is a good question. So, and this is as part of the reality check of, it's easy for me to say, do these things, but when you're in this situation that you realize, wow, I have, most of my PMs are strategists, love strategy, and really none of them want to take on maintenance, right? As an example. And in that situation, you have limited options. Obviously, someone's got to do the work. You're going to put someone on it. Okay. And, what are your other options? So what you can do is you could theoretically rotate people through the stuff that they don't like. That's one option. There's some downside to rotating PMs through projects because you lose the opportunity to develop expertise. But within maintenance, you could argue maybe expertise isn't super critical, so it won't be that bad. But then you also make the argument, wait, so you're going to take PMs off their current project in the middle of the project to go do maintenance on a rotating cycle? How does that work? And my answer to that could be, might not work. So there's a challenge there. Or you don't take them off of their project, but they are still responsible for maintenance, so they're overburdened for a period of time. Again, is that going to work? So there is no easy answer to your question about, hey, when you have a mismatch between your needs, okay, like the buyers and the sellers, right? And it's a market, right? Here's the projects that I need to, to sell to people. Here are my buyers, and none of them want to buy maintenance. That's a tough marketplace to be in. And what you do is you force sell it onto that someone, and sometimes that's life, right? Like, and trust me, as someone that's product managers, I've had to put people on products and projects that they were not excited about. And you'll see, I'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. The one thing I will do to them to try to get them bought into taking this project on just a little bit is explain to them the value of that product, why this is important that we do it. And I'll talk more about it in a second. You'll see in a future slide using that technique, to try to motivate them when they're on something they don't love. Does that answer your question?
And I think there was also just one other question about strategy as well, if you want to ask that quick question. Or does that answer your question for that? Bobby?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, cool. And then there was one question about from Vishal about how do you calculate an expected uptick in any A/B tests? So this is a little bit more of a generic question again. So maybe give me a quick answer and then go ahead with the rest of your presentation.
And you know what? I'm going to deflect that one.
Okay.
I am not, simply because I have not done a ton of A/B tests in my life,
Cool.
in part because I've been B2B. So no offense to that person, but I'm not the right person to answer that question.
Totally fair. Go ahead and keep going. Thank you.
So Fabi directed us right into my next slide, which is give value to everything, right? Just because someone's not excited about it doesn't mean you can't get them excited about it. If you explain to them what the outcome will be if they are successful in this project, in terms of revenue, in terms of retention, in terms of just like overall customer love, or cross-selling, upselling, things like, sorry, I was losing my terminology, click-throughs, transition from freemium to paying customers, all of those things, like, and talk through like what's the win here from every angle, from like the financial to the benefit to our customers, to how happy the C-level in our organization will be that this is a highly visible project, that it will get you, this may not be your favorite, but you do it well, you get a lot of credibility, and then the next you'll get your pick of next projects potentially. Now maybe that's too strong to say you'll get your pick, but we'll take that into account, is something maybe you could say. There's always certain ways to motivate people when they're given something that up front they may not be super excited about. So that's one way. I guess covered why, tell them why this is important to the company, to the customers, all that. And at the end of the day, keep something in mind. Sometimes what you need to remind people of is that in order to be a rock star in a company, you got to do it all. Okay, like you just got to do it. You got to put on your big boy pants and just get it done and do it well. And even if you don't love it, and even if you don't like it, that's one of the ways, if you think about the people that are great at what they do, the odds of them loving everything they do, not so high, but they still do it all, and they do it well, and they do it with a smile on their face. There's something to be said for that. And I know that sounds, a little lofty, but I do believe that. So let's just very quickly, a reality check. I live in the real world. I know a lot of what I'm talking about here is somewhat lofty, theoretical, easier said than done. I appreciate that. I am no fool. I've done enough of these presentations to know that, they are, here's what you should aspire to do. So, and the reality is, like I was just saying, this is a good lead in. Everyone has to do the unfun parts of their job. Okay, this is true not in product, but if you're in sales, HR, and accounting, the three I used before, funny enough, or you're even the CEO of a company. Do you think the CEO loves every part of what they do? I am sure they do not. Okay, so just accept that there are going to be parts of the job you don't love, you don't want to do, but you just got to do it anyway. That's why it's work and not a hobby. We get to pick our hobbies. We don't get to pick everything in our job that we do and then just say, I'm not going to do others. And also, I also recognize you can do everything in your power that you're thinking you can to motivate someone to get excited about a product, project, and it will fail. Okay, you cannot just control people. We all know that. All you can do is try your best to excite them about what they're working on, and accept the fact that sometimes that person, you're just not reaching them, and that will happen. And lastly, let's just all get on board with the concept of sometimes and oftentimes just do it. Okay, you just have to get the work done. Okay, I recognize that as well, that you can't just say no to certain parts of your job that are important to getting to your goals. You just do it. So I'm looking at my watch and we do have time. So I'm going to give you a little bonus content because I can. And I'm shifting only a little bit. And the bonus content is around, okay, similar idea when dealing with engineers. Like how have I found when working with engineering, can you keep them engaged and excited? So similar ideas, but just thinking differently about what an engineer's job is. Also figure out what engineers like. Okay, are they front-end people? Are they back-end people? Do they love APIs? Are they into integrations? So by understanding this allows you potentially, now I know as a product manager, you probably don't have control over what tasks the engineers are working on, but it doesn't mean you can't make suggestions. It doesn't mean you can't recognize that, way when you have like a front end type, a lot of front end work that's going on, that you could talk to your, the engineers that love that work about that and engage them and excite them, because that's what they love to talk about all day long. And knowing that can be helpful. Same thing, if it's just APIs, when it's time to, start working on your suite of APIs. So, you become a platform play and you can integrate with, partners that are out there. Same thing, just what I'm suggesting is similarly, understand what turns the various engineers that you're working with, what excites them. Also understand their style. As you, at this point, probably have discovered, their engineers are a particular breed. A lot of them went into engineering for a reason. Okay, there's a reason that they were attracted to it, and recognize that. So I've noticed that, there are two types, okay, or major buckets, and this is, oversimplification. I admit that, but I'm just, keeping it simple on purpose. Some engineers are highly collaborative, right? They want to talk. They want to talk it through. They want to understand all the details of why are we doing it? What is the benefit of it? Okay, how is this going to help our customers? How is this going to help us sell? I want to know everything and talk this through. And then I want to talk the solution through and make sure that what I'm thinking in terms of solution will make sense and the cost benefit makes sense. And then you have the opposite. You have the lone wolf style engineers that basically want to be given a set of tasks and then left alone for a week to get them done. And almost like the don't bug me, okay, until for a week, let me just go heads down and get this done, and don't interrupt me, because when you interrupt me, it just kills my flow, right? So recognize how they work and try to be respectful of that and work within their style. Okay, don't try to change them. That's foolish. You're not going to change them. Okay, they are truly independent souls. The lone wolf style, you could get them a little bit more collaborative. Absolutely. Again, you make them fully collaborative. Unlikely. That is going to be unlikely. If their personality type is not collaborative, you're only going to take them so far. Are they a leader, or are they more of a, wanting to take orders, right? Factor that in too. Some engineers just, again, need to be given, specific direction to succeed, while others have, a greater leadership style where they actually, want to, take control of certain parts of the product and even lead others. And those engineers often become engineering managers, okay, as well, and lead engineers, and that type of role. But just recognize, again, same thing. Think about their style in terms of, is this person want to lead, or are they looking to be led? Again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be led. That's not a bad thing, especially in the engineering function. Okay, if they're willing to just like take on large chunks of work with very specific, expectations and go just do this, that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are times in projects where that person can be more valuable than someone who wants to be a leader. I won't go into why, because that could be a whole other hour conversation. Well, I think this is if I remember right, my last slide on engineering. Here's an important one, especially, and this is for those product people that came up through, were an engineer themselves. That's my point. Don't do their job for them. Okay, engineers can be very particular and sensitive to when you try to tell them like how to technically design the product. So if you can do that, and I know if you were an engineer, you could, don't. Just in the same way, and here's why. So in the same way, you as a product person would be frustrated when an engineer looks at your roadmap and says to you, no, that's definitely wrong. We should do number 4 before number 1. That's just ridiculous. We have to do number 4. I don't know where you came up with this order, but that's just wrong. Okay, right? As a product person, you wouldn't take too kindly to that, because let's assume for the moment that roadmap, a lot of research went into it. You've done your due diligence. You've spoken to tons of customers. You're looking at what the competition is doing. Okay, there's rationale to your backlog. You wouldn't want to have an engineer telling you like it's how to do your job. Okay, right? Same thing. Don't tell them how to design their software. You'll end up frustrating them. And again, it also plays into the goals, not processes and procedures. As product people, it's our role to definitely tell them what do we need to build, but not how to technically build that product. Just stay away from that if even if you can. Now, that being said, I don't think there's any harm in suggesting things to them. And I can tell you as someone that was not an engineer. However, throughout my career, I found that I have a particular skill set in database design. Okay, it's something I'm actually good at. I don't know how that came to be. It just was. So I am very happy to make potential data modeling suggestions to them. And the only reason I do that is not because I don't think they're going to get to the right end game. It's usually in the vein of, hey, keep this in mind. We might want to do the data model this way because I know in the future, we're going to want to be doing these kinds of business intelligence type solutions, or we're going to want to be able to run these kinds of analyses on the data. And if we don't structure it a certain way, and if we don't have standardization in the data and things of that matter, I think it's going to make that really hard. So factor that in. And here, it's just a suggestion, right? And it's always couched in the vein of a suggestion. So also, this is all in the vein of respecting their craft in the same way you expect them to respect yours. And I covered, right? This is especially true if you're an engineer. And that mostly wraps us up. And I'm going to do just a quick summary because I know I always feel like I'm downloading people with an incredible amount of information. And look, if you're going to walk away with just a few key takeaways, here are the key takeaways. I just to help you out in terms of, well, what did I get out of this? So in terms of trying to figure out, hey, how do I get, again, getting the most out of product people, think about what do they like? What are they good at? Putting them on the right product, the right role, potentially the right team. Focus on giving them outcomes, not the output and the processes and procedures around that. And lastly, try to put value on everything they do and make sure they appreciate that value. Thanks everybody for your time.
Great. Thank you so much, Jordan. Great. Thank you again to Jordan, our speaker, on getting the most out of your PMs on your team. And as always, the presentation will be posted to our SlideShare channel. And a big thank you from me, Chris Butler, moderator and mentor lead as the product manager, the product mentor. To everyone else who joined us today at the Product Mentor program. And don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor, please, sorry, let me do this again. A big thank you from me, Chris Butler, lead moderator, and sorry, one second. Got to finish this strong. All right.
You got this, Chris. You got this.
As always, the presentation will be posted to our SlideShare channel, and a big thank you from me, Chris Butler, to everyone that joined today and the Product Mentor. And don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor like Jordan, the product people of all sorts have joined and visited theproductmentor.com to sign up today. Also, if you're looking to fill a new product job with a great product person, visit our very own free for everybody job board at theproductjobs.com. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. So next, we have Dimitri is going to be doing his presentation at noon. So if people could stick around, that'd be great. And we'll just mute for now. Dimitri, are you all good to go? Any questions?
Yeah, I should be good.
Okay, great. So we'll start in about 10 minutes. So if people just want to stay muted and stay on here, we'll get started then. Thank you.
Good job, Chris. I'll see you soon, hopefully.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Dimitri, if you're
All right. Hey, Chris.
Hey, how's it going? We'll get started in just about a minute, okay?
Yep.
Great. And actually, do you want to just test really quickly that you can go into presentation mode and back out again?
Let me see.
Awesome.
Give me a
Great.
second. I'll share my window. I think it's easier, and we'll start.
Yep, no problem. All right, so if everybody could please turn on their video cameras if possible, and then I'll go ahead and do the introductions in just a minute. And then, yeah, I'll be calling on everybody again just to do another introduction, but fairly quickly. All right, Dimitri, you ready to go?
Give me just 1 second so I can set the screen properly, and I'll be ready to go.
Yeah, no problem. And to say your last name, is it Sotiriou?
Sotiriou, yep.
Sotiriou. All right, I'm sorry. I'm going to totally butcher that. I'm very bad at pronouncing names. Thank you for your understanding. Okay, great. Okay, and then just, I can stop your sharing as well, but if you want to pull out of sharing right now, I can just go ahead and stop sharing for now.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Great, cool. All right, well, so if everybody's ready, let's get started. And again, I'll call on people kind of based on my screen. So if you could just listen for your name, but let's get started. Great. Hello, it's Sunday, October 13th, 2019, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today, we are joined by one of our mentors, Dimitris Sotiriou, to talk on Don't Listen to the Customer and When to Break the Rules. Allow me to briefly explain the format. The Product Mentor Program is one where mentors and mentees are paired around the world to help each other out and learn from each other. Each of the product mentors will give a talk as part of the session that happens twice a year. And then we are joined by people that are active within the session today. If everybody could just wave really quickly. Thank you. You're all alive. Yes, what I'd like to do now is let's do some introductions. So if everybody could please say their name, their location, what is their role or job title, and then whether they're a mentor or mentee in the program. And so I'll start at the very top. So Vivek, if you want to go first, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Vivek from Bangalore. I'm a senior product manager at a firm called Razorpay. I'm a mentee in this program.
Great, thank you. John, you're next in my list.
Hi everyone, I am John Masterson. I am a mentor on this program, and I'm based in London here in the UK, and I'm the Chief Product Officer at a startup called ImproveWell.
Great. Candice, you're next.
Hi, this is Candice. I'm a mentee in this program, and I'm based in New Jersey. So I'm currently leading a small product team in a company called 10-4.
Great, thank you. Fabi?
Hi there, I'm Fabiola. I'm based in Mexico City. I'm a mentee in this program, and I'm head of product of Runa HR, a startup.
Great. Dimitri?
Yep. Hi, my name is Dimitris. I'm the VP of product at the company named Persado, and I'll be doing the talk later on, so I'll give you a bit more information about myself.
Great. Syed?
Hey, my name is Saeed. I am a mentee in the Sorry if I had a difficult time unmuting myself. My name is Saeed. I am a product owner with Verizon. I'm a mentee in the program. I'm based out of New York City.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm Chris Butler. I'm Chief Product Architect at IPsoft, and I'm going to be the moderator today for today's live stream. So without further ado, Dimitri, why don't we go ahead and get started?
All right, let me just quickly share my presentation. So today I'm going to talk about when you should be ignoring a customer. Quite a controversial topic. So before I start going into the topic itself, just a few words about myself. So I'm the VP of Product at Persado. Persado is an AI platform for the choice of words. So we generate marketing content using machine learning and AI. I've been working as a product manager for a bit over 10 years, I would say now. And you can see here in the picture, that's myself when I was starting to be a product manager. So when I was still young and fun, that's what product manager does to you. So I've mainly been involved in marketing, gaming, and software industries. And my interest is mostly data-driven products. And I've been involved most of my work in B2B. So big businesses, small startups. However, our customers are always has been other businesses. My focus has been on R&D and innovation. So I love new products. I love bringing new products into the market. And I also love to hack things. And this comes from my background as well. So I've been electrical software engineer. That's my background. That's how I started. So I started developing stuff, understanding how things work. And after a few more kind of degrees, I went into telecoms with a master's and MBA, and finished the whole cycle with a PhD in what was supposed to be one of the coolest things to do at that time, which was peer-to-peer networks. Of course, things have changed since then. At least the technology is still being used. And now, as I said, I'm leading the team at Persado as a VP of product. So I lead a team of product manager, UX designers, and integrations team. So it's a team around 15 people, and it's quite a team around the world. So I think we are around 11 different locations. So that's not really bad, and mostly for across the US and Europe. So a lot of my time, I'm also dealing with how do we scale teams with a diverse geography and location. So remote teams in general. So back to today's topics. When do you ignore the customer? We all have grown up from product as well, that customer is the king, right? That's one of the main things that we always say. And I'll be honest, in my team, I have 4 main product principles, and one of them is always focus on the user. So it is something very important. However, this is one of the most famous fake, quotes by Henry Ford. So if we had asked people what they wanted when he was developing Model T, they would have said faster horses. So gathering customer feedback is not always right? The customer will not always know what they want to do. And I say this is a fake one because I have investigated. All the sources say it's a fake quote. However, there's still value in the quote. And this is a real quote by Uncle Steve, which says, it's really hard to design products by focus groups. A lot of the time, people just don't know what they want until you actually show it to them. So asking them, what is the next feature I want to develop? What should I improve? Constantly asking users doesn't only bring you to the right solution. So the question is, how can you innovate then? How can you differentiate yourself, especially in today's very competitive market, when customer feedback is mostly driven by today's most popular ideas, right? They just iterate whatever else is doing. So if you want to stand out in the market, just talking to customers, asking them directly, what should I be working next? Usually the answers that you get is what your competitors will be doing. So it's not really going to get you ahead. Also, a very textbook study was Walmart. Walmart was the biggest retailer until Amazon came in, but Amazon is a different topic altogether. That could be a session by its own. And in 2009, they went out and they started changing the stores. They made them less cluttered. They cleaned up the aisles. They brought down the shelves and made them less products. a more streamlined, install experience. However, it failed, and it failed miserably. So they lost more than 1 billion in revenue, and immediately after that experiment, they went back, changed everything to the old way of having hundreds and thousands of products across the aisles, and sales went up. So what went wrong? Why didn't it fail, this experiment? Well, as they found out, they were just asking the users what they wanted. And of course, everyone was saying, as a customer, yes, I like a store that doesn't, it's not crammed with products. It's not all promotions everywhere. I want a nice, simple, free of products and clutter stores. However, that's a predictable answer, but it's the wrong answer. That's not really what the users actually, the behavior shows when they're actually going into the store and buying. So what could they have done, better? The answer is they should have just followed the users. They should have experienced, follow a user going through the shopping trip across the aisles, talking to them while they're shopping to understand really what is their behavior, to understand really what is, the user needs, and not just ask them in a focus group outside of the context of the product itself. And that's kind of how we think about product as well, right? You have to understand your customer problems by empirical, observational, and other methods, even intuition. You really have to understand how they're using your product. If you're just trying to get feedback out of context, a lot of the times you'll get their own feedback. A lot of the times you get things that the customers are not actually lying to you. They just don't really realize a lot of the times how they're using your products. They don't realize what they're trying to get out of your products. And this is my first key takeaway. Don't listen to the customers. Observe them in the context in which they use the products. That's very important. Always try to understand, to get in the customer's shoes. Always try to follow and understand how they're using the products. What is the value they're getting out of the products, instead of just asking them, doing surveys all the time, doing the normal way of gathering feedback. And that's how the big companies have done as well, right? How many times have you seen surveys by Google or Amazon? They don't really need surveys. They actually see you how you use the product. They use data points. They see actual behavior, and using that, they drive innovation. They drive new features. They drive what they're going to be developing as a next product. Because you cannot lie at your behavior, right? The user cannot lie using the product itself. And this is one of my first tips that I always do in my team. So whenever we get a new hire, whenever we get a new product manager joining the team, the first thing I ask, obviously they do the whole, training, onboarding, understanding the product itself, documentation. But the most key and important thing that I ask them to do is shadow the users. It's important for them to get in the user's shoes. It's important for them to feel and experience how the users, the behavior, and how they're using the product. There's no other way to learn better the user than actually being a user yourself and seeing how a user actually uses your product. You should also feel free to ignore customer input. And this is kind of a big exclamation point, because obviously it has a high risk, right? You have to understand when to ignore that feedback, when to ignore that input. Because, why you should ignore sometimes the user? Because they don't necessarily know the truth, right? They cannot predict always how they're going to use your product, in the future. And also they cannot always predict what are their needs in the future. So usually what they will tell you is exactly what's happening now at this, time zero. They have no idea. Most of the users will have no idea what's coming up next. This is probably a quote by Jeff Bezos. Again, I'm trying to see. Not all of the quotes you're finding out there are real. I don't know what's happening. There's a kind of a machine generating quotes. So this, I will put an asterisk if it's real or not, but there is still value in the quote itself. Listen to the customers, but don't just listen to them. Also invent on their behalf. It's important to understand, to take also the step and the initiative to create things on your own and not just base everything on the customer feedback. A good example here, again, a historical fact, is going back to the 70s and going back to the legendary Park Center. So at that stage, Xerox were making photocopiers and printers. It was a big company, billions of revenue, and they developed what was now, a legendary lab, the Palo Alto Research Center, known as PARC. And in that lab, they invented a number of things that most of them have been utilized afterwards by Apple and Microsoft, including the graphical interface, the Ethernet, and the mouse. However, what happened? Xerox never took advantage of it. They never used these technologies. They actually developed the technologies in their own research center. However, other companies took those technologies, and you've all seen what Apple and Microsoft has done. Xerox just ignored it. Most of the directors in Xerox, they just ignore it and say, yes, these are nice features, these are nice toys and technologies, but they didn't actually invest in it. Why did they do that? Because the customers were asking for better photocopiers, better printers. That's what their business was. So they didn't care about this new thing called personal computer. And of course, we're all seeing what history has written about these three companies, how Xerox has developed compared to Microsoft and the Macintosh. And this is also confirmed by the professor himself, Christensen. So, these very decision-making and resource allocation processes that these big companies put in place and make them so profitable are the same ones that are actually blocking them from creating the next great innovation, from having, being able to move to the disruptive technologies. And one of those things is about listening carefully to the customers. They listen to the customers so much, they base everything on what the customer says today, but a lot of the times they will not take the risk. They will not innovate. They will not be able to just go anywhere besides what the customer has said. So if the customer survey says something, what do we want? Better printers, that's it. That's what they're doing, nothing else. And they're missing out on a lot of opportunities. So is it completely about ignoring the user? Not really. We're not really ignoring the user. It's about listening and being careful on how you listen to the users. So you should not blindly believe everything they say. You should listen to them. You should pay attention. You should write everything down. You should focus and investigate, but don't blindly believe what they're saying. So how do you choose? Obviously, there's experience. There's a lot of things that you learn along the way. However, the best thing is to always validate the customer feedback. Always validate with hypotheses and tests whatever you get from the customer feedback. It's a classic example. Customers will say something amazing. You go to develop it. Then you go to sell it back to the customer. And the customer says, yeah, it's nice, but, I don't want it anymore. Or I don't like it. Or, when you ask them the question, yes, would you like to do this? If you develop it, they say, yes, amazing. When can I have it? And you say, okay, how much are you willing to pay for it? Oh, whoa, now that you're start talking about price, that's something different. Now, perhaps it's not that important. Now, I'm not sure I really want it. So always be careful when you hear about customer feedback, how you gather that feedback and how do you validate it. And there's so many ways to validate things, right? There's so many ways to get that feedback and drive a validation in order to understand if the customer will actually be willing to actually get the value out of whatever you develop. So there's research, there's interviews, there's wireframes, Wizard of Oz, ad campaigns. There's 100 different ways of validating ideas. And that by itself, the validation phase and how do you validate ideas and feedback that you're getting can be a completely topic of its own. But it's so critical that you always validate the customer feedback. You don't just go and start building stuff. You don't just go and start building products because the customer said, yes, I like this idea. I think it's amazing. If you do it, that's it. You got the best things coming up. Always validate it.
Yeah, and thank you. Just one quick note, just if there are any questions, please do ask them in the YouTube channel. But thank you, Dimitri. Keep going.
Mm-hmm. And one of my personal tip as well, if you ever see that your data and the customer feedback you're getting doesn't align, always invest the effort and run a proper validation. That's something that can always, it's a hint, right? It's, there's a light coming up when you don't see exactly an alignment on that. So it's important to validate immediately whatever you're doing. I'll give you a personal example. In the past, I was working in the gambling industry. So one of the things that we were seeing and what was, the data was seeing from other industries, from users, was that, they would like to have a new kind of game type of tournaments. So we said, yes, the data showed that this is what we want to do. When we went to a few customers and we gathered the feedback and said, this is what we're thinking about developing in the next 6 months, the feedback was negative. The feedback was, yeah, we've seen it in the past. No, it's not very interesting. So immediately for me, there was a light there. There was an alarm. There's disalignment. Why is the customer doesn't see that value while all the data points actually show that there is an opportunity here? So the first thing I did is immediately invest the effort to test the hypothesis. So immediately what I did was I got a product manager, I got an engineer, I made a very small team. I said, next 2 weeks, create a demo, create a prototype, very fake one at the back end, just to show the idea of the new parts that we're going to be building, the new functionality. And we were out, created a demo in 2 weeks, went on a show, during a big show in Las Vegas. We presented the idea to customers. And then during the show, during the 3 days of the show, we had 10 customers sign up. Some of them were the same customers that were saying, no, we don't need it. No, we don't like the idea. So it's always important to validate ideas. You never know what you're missing out. Also, it's important not to ask just what the customers want. It's important to ask what they don't want or what the problem is, which is even more important. And again, this goes back to my first point, don't ask the customers at all if you can. If you can observe them and not even ask, that's even better. Of course, that's not always the case, right? It depends on your business. It depends, how you work, if it's a B2C, if it's a B2B, but observation is always going to be the best approach. And why? Why do we do that? Because, first of all, people are biased towards the past. A lot of the times, the users, the customers don't like to see things change. They like the way things are. They like incremental increase, improvements, small improvements. They don't, when you go, especially into B2B, when you go to a customer and say, I have this new amazing feature. Now, of course, you need to train your whole team again in order to use this feature. The reaction is first, well, we'll see. It's a lot of work. So it's always, it's within the human behavior to always try to keep things as they are. That doesn't necessarily mean that, somebody else is going to do it. So somebody else is going to take that opportunity for you and then convince the customer to join in. Also, it's important to also get the silent majority. So to get people that are not actively speaking or voicing their opinion to understand their problems as well. So it's always, critical to have that. And the last thing which is very, very critical is to understand their pain points, right? Don't just get the feedback of what can I build next? What do you want to improve? Try to understand what the problems are. That's the most critical thing that you can do.
Great, and actually we have a quick question here. So, so the first one is from Vivek, and so actually, if you could ask your question, please.
So this is a question that I have is basically in terms of so in B2B context, right? If you want to try and observe a customer in the natural environment to discover their true needs, what is the best and fastest way to kind of achieve that? Giving you a little bit of context, for example, say you're building a reconciliation product, right? And then different businesses have different reconciliation processes, right? So to come up with a product which works for all of them, it could be very time taking because you're going to have to go and visit a lot of businesses premises and then request them to observe their processes. That could be a problematic on time taking, right? So in your opinion, what would be the best way of in B2B context to kind of discover this?
Yeah, I mean, there's various ways you can apply. As you mentioned, one is actually go to the customer. So involve your customer success team in order to book those meetings and go and spend time with the customer and say, can I shadow you for 1 day? Of course, that's expensive. It requires travel. It requires approval by the customer. So it's not always available. The next possible solution is to actually do screen shares. So have sessions like a couple of hours where you ask them to just share the screen, ignore you, tell them, do your job, do nothing, don't worry, just to be able to kind of see how they're actually using your product. And the third option is use your analytics. Try to understand how they're actually using your product. So understand all the flow, follow a user. So go into the analytics, or there are software that you can track everything that they're doing. So just pick one user. So you always use the analytics in order to see kind of the mass image, the general image of how users are using it. You can use it as well to just focus on one user, understand which pages he's following, look at the funnel, look at the process. Is he skipping something? Is he using the same things all over again? Is he doing the same process in the same page 5 times because he's doing corrections, but you missed out on your flow? So those are kind of a few techniques that you can kind of apply. And this is obviously, as you said, depends on the context, right? There's also internal users, which are much easier to kind of get on board and create and just follow them on their workplace.
Cool. Great, thank you. And Candace also had a question.
Hi, actually on the same topic, it's just more of a follow-up to the same kind of context. So in a B2B to B2B products, so if the user is not actually the customer, as in, so for instance, if this is a services that they're actually user interacting with the services, but they are not actually involved in, let's say, deciding of if the customer is actually going to continue buying the service. So in that sense, the learning from the user itself is also a little bit isolated from decision making, buying options from a customer perspective. So do you have any recommendation as in, how to kind of bridge this isolation and also, pass along, whatever we're actually improving on the user side to the customer side and to help the customer make the, buying decision?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in B2B, this is a classic case where you have different teams. So first of all, you need to understand the different users of your system, right? You have to create the different personas for your system because there's a different persona for example, I'll give an example. In my company, there's a different persona for the operational part of the customer. So they are one type of user. There's a different persona for kind of the third parties, the agencies that are using on behalf of the customer. And then there's a third and the most critical one, which is actually, the decision maker, the one that will actually say at the end of the year whether you renew the contract or not. And he's probably never even see your system, right? He's the one that just sees a slideshow, that sees, the benefits and also all the Excel sheets about how much revenue you have made them. So there's 3 different users. So first of all is understand all those users. That's the first part, always to be able to validate things. Then you need to understand their needs, right? You have to understand what's the operational team's needs. Obviously, most of the time, it will be about scaling. It will be about how they can do the job faster. What is the agency's, needs? It's about not disrupting the business model, right? We don't want to take revenue out of them. That's what they're mostly afraid. Perhaps, for them, it could be the opposite from the operational team. The more time they take into your system, the more they can charge. So they're your friends. And then you obviously have the decision maker, where it's all about the benefit, the bottom line that you bring into the business. So in order to validate things, you need to first create those personas and then start talking to them in a different level, trying to understand their needs, and again create kind of discussions. Obviously, with a decision maker, it will be interviews, right? It will be interviews to understand what they're trying to see from the system, what they're trying to get out of it. And also, it's important to remember that you're actually, a lot of people will think like, the decision maker only cares, about the Excel sheets, right? About the figures. However, they will always get feedback from all the teams as well. So it's important that you kind of validate things even with the other teams, even if they're not the decision maker. So the operational team might not be the decision maker, but they can easily be the blocker, the one that comes back to the decision maker and says, you know what, the software is too difficult to work with. The service is impossible. It takes us double the time and increase, the costs and our day-to-day business to operate by so many hours that I don't care how much we're making. So it's always important to kind of, perhaps you can validate their needs.
Great, thank you. Go ahead and take it away.
All right, can you still see my screen? Just to validate that. Yep.
Nope, you need to present again.
Oh, okay, sorry for that. All right. So this is an even more fake quote I have found. So I was trying to find around quotes, and I will find most of them were fake. But again, there's value even in the fake quotes. And we are living in a fake era. So this was a quote that Einstein didn't actually make, but the value is still there. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. So this has been very important and has been applied a lot into marketing. It has been applied a lot into product marketing. Think of the pixel ads, right? Night sight. There's nowhere to see the phone. They're focusing on the problem. What's the problem? You cannot take pictures in the dark without flashlights, without ruining all the experience. So this can apply a lot into how we build products as well. You're not actually selling a product to the customer. You're selling a solution to their problem. The same thing you've seen in sneakers, for example. You're not hungry. You're not yourself when you're hungry. So you're solving a problem. It's been there for ages. Coca-Cola is, selling the problem of thirst. That's what they're selling for years and years, and it works. It is also being applied, even in startups. A lot of the times, you have to specify the problem. You have to make sure that the customers understand, they highlight the problem that they never knew that existed. A classic example, Salesforce, right? They came out with a big campaign at the beginning when they started of no software. They actually started, campaigning that, you have a huge problem in your business. You're tied to software and hardware. And of course, the customers didn't even know they had that problem until Salesforce came in. And of course, what's the best way to solve a problem that you just realize you have? To offer the solution, of course. And this gets me to the third key point. Don't listen to what the customers say. Search for problems instead. That's a lot more important than just listening to feedback. And on that, a personal tip. If a customer, when you get into a meeting, when you get into kind of a feedback session, where you're gathering all the information from the customer, if the customer starts to describe a solution to you, this is the solution I want, this is what I want you to build. Usually for me, 95% of the times, that's not really the problem. Basically, they're missing what they want. I find it that when the customer starts to do that, they are thinking about solutions and not actually thinking of the root problem. And that's our job, and especially product, to understand the underlying problem that you're trying to solve, to understand the underlying need of the customer. So, quick example that I had from my own business. Big customer, huge retailer, came in working with us as a B2B, and they had an approval process and working with us. So they came in and they said, guys, it's very difficult. We need to have a mobile approval. We need to have a mobile software to do approvals. It's key for us. That's the only way we will scale together as a business. When I heard that, immediately there was a bell ringing. So I was thinking, yes, if they're having a solution and they're asking us to do a solution immediately, there's probably the problem is somewhere else. And I was trying to think, and I was trying to discuss, immediately with the product managers, guys, let's see what's going on. What is the real problem here? Yes, mobile approval can be a solution. A bit weird for myself, for B2B. Most B2B companies don't even have a mobile version of their software. So, but we're open to do that. But let's discuss this more with the customer. Let's discuss and understand what is the real problem. And of course, the real problem has been, that the approval process takes too long. That's the real problem. As a customer, you shouldn't care how we solve that problem, right? If you make the approval process fast and streamline it, you don't care if it's desktop, if it's mobile, if it's SMS, you really don't care. You just want your approval process to be as fast as possible. So we went back, discussed with the customer, and actually we came back with a better, improved desktop version of doing approvals and doing mass approvals. And that solved the customer problem. And they never really kind of, after discussing this and creating a prototype and seeing how it all works, immediately the customer said, yeah, you know what, probably we don't need the mobile one. Or it can be done in down the road in 6-12 months, by the time that we, things might be already solving the problem. So always be in alarm whenever a customer comes in with a ready solution and saying, yes, guys, this is what we really want. This is the solution we need.
Hey, Dimitri, we got a question from Fabi. So if she could please ask her question really quickly, please.
Okay, so my question is more related to metrics. So I have been trying to communicate that NPS is more a vanity metric rather than a super useful metric in terms of users. So what metrics do you usually find useful to validate info about users?
Yeah. So it all depends. The NPS has its own value, and especially in B2C. In B2B,
B2B, yeah.
Yeah, B2B NPS, it's very difficult. And it comes down, a lot of it comes down to what we just, been discussing with the previous question, that on the NPS, you only see the operational part as well. So you will see the operational team actually using your software. You will never see all the other teams using your software. You'll never see the overall picture of how happy a customer will be. You'll be getting an amazing NPS, and all of a sudden the customer will never renew. Simply because the users that you get in the NPS actually don't pay for the software, don't make the decision making.
Exactly. Yes.
So it has to be very careful. The NPS is the actual user, and when I talk user, it's just the one actually going in and doing the operational part. In B2B, usually they will not be the ones that you really, you have to take into account. It's still important. As I said, operational has to be happy, but it's not taking into consideration all the users that you have. So for the other users, I will say it's more about doing interviews for the higher users. It's about doing interviews, talking to them, getting the feel, and understanding how, on a regular basis. So every 3 to 6 months, being able to go and talk to the decision makers, understand how they're viewing, understand how they see the relationship. And that's the only way you can make sure that they're still happy and you can get that kind of feedback.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Just to clarify as well, because you mentioned metrics as well, it's not only qualitative. You can have metrics, but it all depends on with your business, right? So one of the things that we've seen in our business, for example, is consumption. We have metrics about how much they're consuming our product, how much are they using the service. Even if the service, let's say it's you have a service that you pay yearly, a subscription, and you don't care, once they subscribe, we'll talk to you again in a year. There are metrics to see, are they still using the system? Are they increasing the usage? If they're not, it means that at the end of the road, there will be problems. They will be difficult to justify a renewal. So there is still, metrics that you can see that will help you understand how they're seeing your product. If you're not seeing them logging in every day, as opposed to 6 months ago, if you're not seeing them utilizing, if it's an API, utilizing the API, if it's a service, making service requests all the time, if you see that going down, obviously there will be a problem in the long run for the relationship with the customer.
Great, thank you. Go ahead and take it back away.
Thank you.
I believe this is my last slide, just to summarize the three things, the three key items.
Can you just start sharing your presentation again, please?
Oh. Sorry, I didn't double click. So just to summarize, this is my last slide, just to summarize what I just said. So it's not just about listening to the customers. For me, it's important that you observe the customers in the context that they're using your software and your product. It's about validating every feedback you're getting with hypotheses and tests to ensure that it's still valid, and not just listen to what they're saying. Just look, more importantly, look for the root problems. Understand exactly what their pain points are. That's the most important thing in the customer feedback. And that was it.
Great, thank you so much. So thank you again to everybody. Thank you to Dimitri. Actually, we do have one question from John. John, if you want to ask your question.
Sure, yeah. So this is very, very pertinent to me because that's something I have to do next week. So I just wondered if you could maybe give us a little bit of an insight into what are the sort of criteria you use for selecting features. So, maybe if listening directly to customer feedback isn't as important, what are the types of things that you maybe just, if possible, run us through what criteria or things you would look at?
Yeah, I'll give you an idea of how I work today with a team. So one of the things we do is obviously we have the work that we're doing on a macro level, so on a yearly and 6-month level, where we're doing our kind of road mapping in order to understand the directions we're going to head to. So that's kind of an exercise we do every 6 months. And it involves an exercise of working together as a team, talking, gathering all the feedback that we'll be getting from all the customers, all the teams within the company, and also understanding where the market is going, and also our own ideas and research, put them on paper, discuss them for a couple of weeks, until we create, the main goals, align them as well with the OKRs of the company and set up the whole roadmap. And that includes, from my end, something that we have like a ratio of around 60% of things coming in from customer feedback, requests, improvements, or iterations of previous features that we have developed, and 40% of new things, the risky stuff, the new ideas, the ones that we want to take the risk in order to get ahead in the market. So we always try to do this kind of mix. Now, how do we prioritize? At the moment, we're following a plan, or I like to call this a plan of major themes, where I try to have something like 4 cycles of major themes within the year. So we have, in the company I'm working at the moment, we release on a monthly basis. So we have 12 releases a year. And I like to have like 4 major releases being big themes, big new features that we're going to go out to the market, do all the marketing activity as well for promoting those new features, and have all the other releases be iterations of those features and customer features that have been requested, small improvements, things that they make, customers will give direct feedback that they want in order to improve their operational side of it, or what they need because it's a custom feature that they might request. So I'm trying to have this kind of mix in order to prioritize them and decide which one we use. Then for the customer, features, the smaller ones, a lot of it is coming from the discussion with customers and internal teams. So for every product manager, I always ask them on a monthly basis, talk to the CS teams, talk to the sales team, talk to customers, have interviews with customers, shadow customers in order to get these features and prioritize them, obviously using your own metrics. What is the value, what's the risk, what's the effort, whatever is the customer value as well from a contract perspective. This will drive the prioritization for the next month for the smaller features. For the bigger features, the ones that I called major themes, we always try to follow an approach of betas, alphas, and then release. So usually what we do is when we come up with the idea and we say, okay, this is a big feature that we want to release in Q2 next year, we will start off by creating a prototype. The prototype can be a small MVP that we'll test with a couple of customers. It can be a lot of times something completely manual. It's something that we generate and we show the end result as a presentation, as a custom solution or as a fake thing in our portal, so that the customers can give us feedback. Once we get that, once with the customers and we get the feedback and whether the customers are willing to pay for it, they see the value and they are willing to also go to the next stage of being an alpha customer. We will go to the alpha stage where we'll actually develop the first version of the feature, release it to a restricted number of customers, so 5 to 10 customers, in order to gather the early feedback. And then we'll have the major release where we actually release it to the general public to all the customers. So that way we can have, following this approach, we have a mix on prioritization of, everyday product improvements, big things, but also taking out the risk, right? Validate ideas and at least killing ideas as early as possible. So a lot of those major themes might not work out, right? You may do the beta version and the feedback might be negative. At least you save your time, months and months of development, months and months of releasing marketing material, all the company working behind that new major release. You save it as an early phase.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. That's framed some thoughts for me. So thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, well, let's definitely give a big thank you to our speaker, Dimitri, on don't listen to the customer and when to break the rules. So thank you very much to him. And as always, the presentation will be posted on our SlideShare channel. And a big thank you from me, Chris Butler, to everyone that joined us today and the Product Mentor. And don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor like Dimitri, to product people of all sorts, please visit theproductmentor.com and sign up today. Looking to fill a new product job with a great product person? Please visit our very own free-for-all job board, theproductjobs.com. Great, thank you, everybody. Unfortunately, Scott had to reschedule due to a last-minute business trip. So basically, this is the last presentation of today. And so I'll be stopping the live stream, but thank you, everybody, for joining. And I'll see everybody else online. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.